Hello and welcome to Hot Indonesia, where everything's on the table. I'm Dalton Tanonaka in Jakarta. Here is this week's H-I Hotlist. KIWI credit. What New Zealand did right in the coronavirus fight. We get insights from Indonesia's ambassador there, Tantowi Yahya. Garuda rising. Are government plans enough to save the national air carrier from permanent grounding? And MCD memories. Just why Jakartans mourn the closing of the country's first McDonald's. Here are my co-hosts each and every week, still from their respective homes. Sandrina Malakiano, former TV news anchor, now a political marketing consultant, and Sandiaga Uno, business executive and former vice governor of Jakarta. Here's hot topic number one, KIWI credit. Faster than just about anywhere else in the world, New Zealand reopened for business this week, with malls, cinemas, restaurants, and others now serving customers again. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern also announced that schools will reopen on Monday following tight restrictions to fight the deadly COVID-19. With only 21 deaths and a 90% recovery rate, this island nation is being held up as a guide for others to follow. Tantowi Yahya is Indonesia's ambassador to New Zealand. He joins us now from his home in Wellington. Ambassador, welcome to the program. Now, granted, New Zealand, of course, is a rather isolated island nation with a population of only 5 million people, but reopening means leaders did something right. What was that?
I would like to underline what you said. New Zealand's being the most isolated country in the world. It is. And in this regard, it brings a lot of advantages to this country. So being a country which is far away from everywhere, there is no other country after New Zealand but the South Pole that makes this country becomes one of the last countries to get infected by the virus. Now, being a country that gets infected in the very last moments give them a lot of time about what happened in other countries. So that's the situations that make this country became very prepared when the virus came for the first time on the February 28th. So I think that's the one big secret behind it. And as you understand, it's always nice when in a class, for example, in exams, when you get the last chance of being tested by the teachers. You learn a lot from the students before you, and that's what happens to New Zealand. The second point is that this country implemented a very clear and consistent rules and regulations to overcome the virus that creates no panic to the people. And the third one is that this government is very firm. They don't have any hesitations in implementing the rules. And again, that makes the people very firm and very well informed. And the fourth point is the immense support from the parliament. And I don't think it happens in many other parts of the world but New Zealand. Of course, there is oppositions here. In terms of fighting against the virus right now, they set aside the unconstructive oppositions, but rather they become, I would like to use the word constructive oppositions. So they still criticize the government, but they always see the big picture. They work hand in hand with the governments in overcoming the virus as soon as possible.
Okay, Sandrina, a question for the ambassador, please.
Yes, Your Excellency, good to see you. Do you believe that the reason why the government's lockdown has proven to be effective is because of the transparency of messages delivered by the government? Because that is a big issue here in Indonesia.
The success of New Zealand's government under the helm of Prime Minister Ardern is based on the regulations. All the regulations that the government makes always based on science and then recommendations from the scientists and the experts. So if you make rules and regulation based on that, there is no way you can be wrong. And this is what happens here. So taking all the advices and recommendations from the scientists, academics, and experts, compile with what happened in other countries, and then that becomes the rules which are implemented by the governments here. So Jacinda knows it very well that the best way to eliminate the virus is to cut the transmissions. There is no other way. So during the time where no vaccine is found yet, no medicine is found yet, so the best way that we can do is to cut the strings of the transmissions. And it is manifested in the way of doing a lockdown.
Sandy, I know you have a question for the ambassador.
Actually, it is very interesting that 88% of the people really trust the government in New Zealand. And it's not just handling this COVID-19, but I think it's actually a long track record. So what's the secret sauce to have that high level of trust of the government? And secondly, on the economy, New Zealand rely on tourism, and when the tourism stops, what are the tourist tourism sector's policy to counter the basically the zero amount of tourist arrival? How do the government incentivize the tourism sectors?
Well, thank you for the questions. I feel very much lucky and honored to be posted in a country where the government is very efficient and the trust from the people is very high. I fully agree with what you said. The perceptions of governments in the eyes of the people of New Zealand, not only this current government, but long before that, has always been high. So they put a big trust on the government that they elect on every elections, and the people of New Zealand is very mature in terms of democracy. And the second is the economy. You're right. So tourism and agriculture become the first contributor of the economy alternatingly. But for the last 3 years, tourism's become the biggest contributor to the economy. When this pandemic happens and they have to close the border, at the same time they kill the number one business. So it's very severe. It kills a lot of people's job. More than 30% of the New Zealand people now become jobless. They don't know what to do. Luckily, they have enough money to subsidize that. So they give almost 80% of the wage subsidy. But then what is going to happen to the tourism? Tourism will be dead until when, we don't know. As long as the border is closed, so there is no way this industry can be back to life. The discussion is now being made between New Zealand and Australia to open the border. So it's only that. But when it happened, nobody knows that. So the earliest, I think, it's August, September, or even the end of the year. And no one is talking about the opening of the borders with other countries. So forget about it. Forget about America, forget about Singapore, forget about Asia. So which means that this industry will be dead for a long time. But they have to sustain that. So the main concern, which is now being discussed here, is how to revive the domestic tourists. So their main concerns right now is the domestic tourists, plus about 10 million of Australians that are expected to be flying into the New Zealand at the end of the year.
You know, we got to wrap this up. I want to ask you one kind of personal question, Ambassador. You know, how has your posting affected your life and your outlook on life? Because, you know, you've previously been a TV person, a performing artist. Now you've served as an ambassador through a terrible shooting tragedy in a mosque last March, and now this terrible coronavirus. How does it change your outlook on life, sir?
Yeah, life has changed here. So before the Christchurch shooting, everything was so relaxed here, was not really regulated. But after that happened, it became a bit stringent in many cases. You have to deal with a lot of inspections in public spaces, in airport, things didn't change before the shooting. That what makes a little bit difference here compared to the events before the shooting.
Yeah, and I just meant kind of the bigger picture, Ambassador, that, life, you realize how valuable life is and how fragile it is and how it could be taken away by something you never see coming like the coronavirus. We got to run. Ambassador Tantowi Yahya, Indonesia's ambassador to New Zealand. Thank you very much for your time, and please take care, sir.
Thank you, Dalton, for the chance. Thanks, Sandrina and Sandy.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you very much, and good luck.
Hot Indo will continue shortly with Garuda rising. Will the government bailout of the national flag carrier be enough? You're watching Hot Indonesia with Sandrina, Sandy, and me. Here's hot topic number 2, Garuda rising. The country's national airline resumed a limited schedule on May 7th after grounding a majority of flights for several weeks to prevent the spread of COVID-19. But the global pandemic will hit the carrier hard this year after a profitable 2019. The government preparing a $1 billion bailout package to keep the state-owned company flying. Now, this package includes bridge loans and restructuring of Islamic bond payouts, sukuk. And this is when, guys, I think a taxpayer bailout is necessary, in my opinion, because unforeseeable forces affected its business. What do you guys say?
It's a flag carrier. This is one of the state-owned enterprises that actually carries the pride of Indonesia. They have gone through few restructurings before. I think this is an opportune time for the government to step in and bail out. Well, around the world, airlines are having very tough difficulties, in particular because tourism is down, people have less mobility. And for Garuda itself, Garuda is a bit at a more advantageous positions because the revenues from the cargo is higher compared to other airlines. Other airlines is only 3%. Garuda is hovering around 10% from the cargo business. So if you look at this is timely, and I think we need to let Garuda continue to fly. I was at the airport last week and going to the airport again today. It's an eerie sight, really, really awkward looking at terminals 1, 2, 3, basically very empty. And we had one Garuda flight coming in from Singapore. It's only 80 people on the plane, and because they have social distancing rules, and this is something that I guess we need to do as a country to bail out.
Yeah, I think because people criticize, Sandy, people criticize bailouts of private companies. So when it's a state-owned carrier, I think the criticism is less. Sandrina, you agree? Bailout package okay for this situation?
Yes, I do, because as Sandy mentioned, this is the flag carrier, the pride of Indonesia, and it's owned about 61% by the government, and also it's a public company, shares owned by the people. So it is the responsibility of the government to give some support, even especially knowing that from the financial report of 2019, even though it has been quite profitable, still Garuda has been in a rather unpleasant situation with the short-term liabilities, bank loans, and revenues dropping drastically this quarter, the first quarter. And as you know, the glory days of travel is yet to come in the near future. So aside from loans still, I do believe that airlines need other alternative supports. For example, the postponement of fuel or after payments, lowering or eliminating entry fees for spare parts, lending fees, navigation fees, and other airport fees, and refinancing of the company's debts or loans.
The airline itself has reduced salaries, delayed salaries, not much else it can do, I guess, to help itself. And of course, it was hit really hard by the cancellation of, by Saudi Arabia, of pilgrimages, which
yes, for the Hajj and the Umrah. What do you mean?
Right, and that'll probably pick up in the last quarter when they delay it. But I'm a fan of Garuda, and I think this might be the time for them to be preparing a fresh promotional campaign when the restrictions end, something like Rediscover Garuda, because let's get Indonesians as excited about their air carrier as Singaporeans about SQ.
What I've heard is that actually the management of Garuda right now is preparing to share or give away free tickets as soon as this COVID outbreak is over, to try to boost again air travel, domestic and international. Because I personally do believe that the sooner the aviation business recovers, then the sooner also global economy will begin to strive again, Dalton.
Yeah, Sandy, you like Garuda, right? You fly it all the time, as much as you can.
Listening to Sandrina, she should be the CEO of one of my
I'm just a loyal customer.
Failed attempt to own an airline. I used to invest in an airline, and it went into bankruptcy. So I guess we all love Garuda. We want to cheer Garuda. But one thing that we need to mention is the type of bailout, because it's a public company. One type of bailout that could be done is basically to prepay some of the future use of the seats or cargo. And this is something that we can help Garuda to get the cash flow, the early cash flow to get in. Also for the Umrah and Hajj, it's a big portion of Garuda revenues. So if we could also have get some of the prepayment for the next Hajj and Umrah, it will help the cash flow of Garuda, and in particular to save jobs, because we have flight attendants, we have pilots, as well as the ground crews, and a lot of jobs are at stake. So we need to really think and how to keep the jobs. And when the market is reopening, the borders is reopening, Garuda will be ready, and Garuda will take its pride again, hopefully.
Yeah. A lot of good ideas coming out of Hot Indonesia today as far as Garuda. And we will get this program on the in-flight video menu when the thing when everything resumes. Okay, Hot Indo will continue. More program ahead. MCD Memories, why these people actually broke the law, to gather with Ronald McDonald. You're watching Hot Indonesia from Jakarta. Hot topic number 3, MCD Memories. It came in the middle of a near lockdown, but hundreds gathered anyway May 10th to remember the good times they had at the very first McDonald's in this country. This store in the Sarina Shopping Center in the heart of the capital opened in 1991, and ever since has been the scene for study halls, first dates, and midnight munchies.
On Thursday, the city fined operators 10 million rupiah, or $670, for allowing the crowd to gather.
Now, mall operators say renovations and a new theme forced the closing. First, it's hard to beat nostalgia, and I don't fault those who went there this past Sunday night. Do you?
If this happened during a normal situation, then there would be nothing wrong. But this is during this large-scale social restrictions, so passers-by flocking, people coming there, especially just to commemorate, to have some memories of maybe meeting their husbands or wives there, or
Did
making
you meet your husband there, Sandrina? Were you?
No.
Did you go there as a teenager or as a young person?
I did, but what I was about to say is that it's ironic, because this shows how weak the implementation of regulations here in Jakarta, and how low the awareness of the people of the urgency of social distancing.
But, I think maybe one or two people said, hey, let's just go take a look. It's the last night. And then everybody thought that at the same time. I don't think they planned it. But Sandy, it was a big deal nearly 30 years ago when this American icon opened in Jakarta, right?
It's really huge. It is the first store of its kind in Jakarta, and it's the first time also that McDonald's learns that the sales of fried chicken beat the sales of hamburger. And this is the first time also that McDonald's experienced that people eat apple pie with sambal, with the chili sauce. So it's amazing.
Kidding.
And what happened last Sunday night, it's I guess a combination of cabin fever, nostalgia, but really, I guess, silly of people gathering. It's really very, very high risk. And I do agree with Sandrina that we need to do more educations and socialize. This is towards hopefully the tail end of where we're reaching the peak of this pandemic. Let's not waste it. We need to get ourselves disciplined, bite the bullet for a few more weeks, and hopefully we return back to normal.
Sure, of course. You guys are right. I'm not saying we go out and do it again, but nostalgia is such a powerful feeling. So anyway, it is feedback time now, and we do want to hear from you, and we will do our best to answer your questions or comments. We got this email from Adi in Melbourne. What is the government doing for people who have lost their jobs and have rental agreements during this extraordinary situation? Important question, Adi. We haven't heard that the government here is doing anything directly for renters, but the best thing anyone can do, I guess, is to appeal directly to your landlord for some kind of relief, yeah? And Chak posted this on the Indonesia Channel YouTube page. I always learn English by watching this channel. Well, glad to help you in any way, Chak. Here's how to contact us with your feedback. Email at hotindo@theindonesiachannel.com or comment through our Hot Indonesia channel or TV1, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages. Final word, Sandrina.
To all high school students who have just graduated, congratulations. I know this is not the kind of graduation that you have been dreaming to have, but maybe we can look at it this way. Class of 2020, you are all meant to be special, to stand out, and I wish you all the best, a bright future, and success for your future endeavors.
Second that. Okay, so final words from Sandy.
We spoke about tourism, and last week, for the first time in 2 months, I went to Soekarno-Hatta and saw how really sad the airport is so empty. But not long after that, basically there's a confusion, and there was an explosion, an overflooding of travelers. So I'd like to appeal to the travelers, safe travel. Make sure you really, really need to travel, and make sure you got testing, because we are bracing towards the sort of like the end, hopefully, of this large-scale limitations. So be safe, guys.
Okay, and my final words. When nothing's open, there are very few options for human interaction and those of us who really need it. So, you know what the new hotspot in these crisis days has become? The grocery store. Yes, when you're buying milk and rice, people are actually meeting there for dates or exercise or just chatting. It's free, and I don't say that everybody rush in at the same time, but the lights are bright and it's fun. More fun than going to the doctor's office, I guess, which is the only other option. That is Hot Indonesia for this week. For Sandrina Malakiano and Santiago Uno, I'm Dalton Tanonaka. Thank you for watching. Please join us again next time.